Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it.
The Biden administration wants to change the way the U.S. handles immigration by giving more protections to hundreds of thousands of immigrants and starting a plan to make sure the system is fair, legal, and gives everyone the same chances.
It's time to fix it. On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress. If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it. It's over 11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here overstaying visas. Pass it.
Visit us at Swat&Vee channel with your questions to see how best we can help you out your process. Please don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel.
Now let's continue to watch the video and find out what's new in U.S. immigration. It's been 3 years since former President Donald Trump was in office, but it seems his presence refuses to leave the room. On February 2021, the Biden administration announced a new immigration policy that would tighten up on the southern borders of the United States to stop a possible influx of illegal immigrants once pandemic measures are lifted in May. The policy said that people who entered the country illegally and then asked for asylum would be punished and sent back home. Biden is also thinking about bringing back the policy of detaining migrant families who cross the border illegally. He stopped doing this 2 years ago in order to find a more humane way to deal with illegal immigration. These strict policies are a lot like Trump's in that they push a biased way of looking at political issues. It's long overdue to truly look deeper into the roots of immigration and find better solutions to dealing with this label that has been the core of our nation since its inception. The biggest problem with our country's modern-day immigration laws is that they're stuck in the past. Outside of implementing stricter policies, it's been 58 years since any substantial changes have been made. And Biden is planning to continue this trend. Since the colonies were founded, immigration has been an important part of what makes the U.S. what it is today. The first wave emerged from the early 17th century, pre-documented colonial U.S. to the mid-19th century. Most migrants then were European and English-speaking families who sought religious freedom and economic opportunity. However, many were also forcibly moved to the Americas through indentured servitude and the transatlantic slave trade. The second wave occurred from the mid-19th century to the early 20th century, when national and global events like the California Gold Rush, the Irish Potato Famine, and the European revolutions of 1848 resulted in an influx of immigrants from China, Ireland, and other countries from Europe to America. During the third wave, which happened from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, more than 27 million people, mostly from Europe and Canada, came to the United States. The fourth wave is still ongoing, starting in the late 20th century with most immigrants from Latin America and Asia. From a historical point of view, all immigration was welcome before 1875, but nativists were always against it. Anti-immigrant, xenophobic ideals were always brewing. During the early 1800s, hostility against Catholics and later racism against Asian immigrants resulted in the first anti-immigration law being put into place, the Immigration Act of 1875, or the Page Law. Similar discriminatory policies kept getting 10 times worse, like the Immigration Act of 1891, which increased the number of people who could be deported, like criminals, poor people, Chinese people, and so on. Then came others, like the Immigration Act of 1917, also known as the Barred Zone Act, which banned immigration from countries in the Middle East to Southeast Asia. The Immigration Act of 1924, or the Johnson-Reed Act, set an annual quota on immigrants allowed from specific countries with a preference for Northern and Western Europe to preserve American homogeneity. I stop myself here, but there are so many more. However, as the years ticked closer to the 21st century, many policies and laws were ratified. In the end, the Immigration and Nationality Act amendments of 1965, also known as the Hart-Celler Act, was the law that got the most people to agree. This law got rid of the limit on how many people could come to the U.S. from certain countries. This lessened discrimination based on nationality and moved the U.S. toward policies that focus on bringing families together. Immigration has since shifted from Europe to Asia and Latin America. The Hart-Celler Act was a big step forward for its time, but this law is still the basis of any immigration policy and regulation being enforced today. There have been revisions, like the Immigration Act of 1990, that increased the immigration cap and allowed employers to hire workers with temporary visas, but most changes have been temporary, sudden, unstable, or meant to bring in cheap laborers. Public backlash against illegal immigration made Congress pass restrictive laws in 1996, like the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act (EDPA), a policy that made it especially easier to detain and deport non-citizens, to prevent what many citizens thought to be people from shithole countries, borrowing the words of Trump, from entering the country. After 9/11, deportation and arrests became more likely with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, where immigrant communities, especially those from Middle Eastern countries, were unfairly watched and targeted. The unjust targeting of immigrant communities only grew stronger as time passed. ICE started to work with local law enforcement agencies to arrest more unauthorized immigrants through the 287G program, a program named after a section of the Hart-Celler Act, yes, the one that was made in 1965. According to a study done by the American Civil Liberties Union in April 2022, at least 67% of agencies participating in the 287G program have records of a pattern of racial profiling and other civil rights violations, including excessive use of force, and at least 77% are running detention facilities with serious and extensive records of inhumane conditions. These facilities are directly partnered with the government's administration. At least 59% of participating sheriffs are reported to have records of anti-immigrant, xenophobic rhetoric, and 55% have made statements advocating for inhumane immigration and border enforcement policies. These problems have not changed, and the Trump, the dump, era only made them worse. After former President Barack Obama's administration, only 34 local agencies were still in the 287G program, but after Trump, more than 140 agencies were once again active. The Trump administration supported ICE's unfair practice of separating families. Around 5,500 children were taken away from their parents at the southern border, and people were housed in horrible conditions where they ate food that made them throw up, went hungry, and had serious health problems. Under Trump, racial profiling became a huge issue, police violence was amplified, and xenophobic rhetoric became stronger than ever. Immigration has always been a part of American identity. But the American way of dealing with immigration has been saturated with bias and, at times, disdain. This often looks like choosing to deport people, whether or not they had a valid reason to seek safety. They are detained in inhumane conditions or separated from family. American immigration reform has always been based on discrimination. It was passed quickly in a half-hearted attempt to save face, and then it was replaced by other discriminatory laws with long-lasting effects. Biden's campaign for president focused on how to treat illegal immigrants with kindness, and he seemed to be undoing the anti-immigrant necklace that Trump had put around America's neck. Now, however, he's on track to clip it back. The Biden administration needs to take a step back and reevaluate how they're approaching immigration. The constant back and forth between conservative and progressive politics makes it almost impossible to make real, meaningful changes. However, these policies need to be changed quickly before more families are permanently hurt. Immigrants are the foundation of the United States.
I hope you guys found this video extremely helpful. If you know anybody that could benefit from this information, definitely make sure to share this video with them. We are all about empowering you with knowledge. So the more people that can benefit from this video, the more people we want watching this video. If you like this video, please make sure to hit that thumbs icon. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit on the notification bell for more immigration updates. Bye!